In my 15 years at Tufts, I've taught primarily small classrooms. And when I took the CELT program a couple of years ago, I was trying to imagine how to engage in a large class. How do you teach to 150 kids and still have the same style that I used to have in a small class, which is student projects, sort of hands-on activities. And so Molly Mead at the time gave a little introduction to digital storytelling, something that she had done in her own work, more in the humanities, social sciences side of things. And the idea that these students could work together to create a small video, 5 minutes max in length, and bring in the science that they were learning, take a topic and work together as a team, felt like the perfect thing for a large class. So we have 152 students. There's no way we can have 152 different projects. You can't have 152 papers. Maybe in some worlds you can, but it would be really hard to have that kind of independent project. So I was looking for a project that we could do in that class that would bring the students together. And so what we came up with is that we should split the roles of the students. We should have a project manager, we should have a science writer, we should have sort of the art director, image director, and then the fourth person would be the sort of the technical expert. So they'd each come to them with their own separate sort of what they were in charge of, but the idea is that they would actually work together to create this thing. So they'd all become sort of experts of the science. They would also sort of be able to evaluate the images that were put together. The quality of their bibliography was really important. We made it really clear to them that we didn't want them just to visit a lot of websites to get information. And so the strongest projects were ones that went to the library and found data papers that had been published by scientists looking at this issue and finding a way to sort of convey that information into it. And I guess my goal there was to have them realize that any topic is a process when there's no end point. There's always more science to be learned, and there's recent science that's been done on it. So I wanted them to incorporate sort of the thoughts of researchers. There was a project on vaccines, whether or not people should be vaccinated. And so they actually went to health services at Tufts and interviewed the health services person there on, what is the science behind vaccines? What are the policy implications of not getting vaccinated? So that was a really interesting interview with some people at health services. We designed it to have a peer review process in it, which was, I thought, a really important aspect of it. So we had them get a draft into us, I think it was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And then Zach posted them all online with project numbers, and then these clips were up there. Some of them were too long at the time, but that was okay because this was a draft. And then each group was responsible for evaluating 2 others. And so we gave them a rubric for what kinds of questions to be asking themselves as they're looking at this other project. So I'm hoping that did sort of 2 purposes. One is it gave other projects feedback on what was working well and not, but maybe in the process they also started asking themselves, what can I do differently the next time? Some of the comments that we got in feedback, it's really hard to coordinate 4 people. And so the question, should we actually reduce it to 3 people? But then you have many more projects, and so that'd be one thing. So that'd be a learning outcome, just the challenges of working with 4 people, and the challenges when one person doesn't quite carry the load. And yet I think that's also an important learning experience where not everybody gives as much as you might like them to give. But I think that they learn a lot on their own individual projects, and I think that while I think they might have learned just as much if they had written a joint paper, the fact that they actually have a product at the end that they could put forward if they wanted to share with people. I think we're in the media age, and being able to figure out how to communicate science and communicate environmental issues digitally is really, really important. So I think it's better than just having them write a paper that the only people who see it are Tegan and I. I'm going to share them with them, and they want to post some of them. And I want to post it on the Environmental Studies website, and I want to post them on the wiki so the students can get some examples of projects next year. I think there were some mixed reports that we got from students on whether or not they'd like to see them posted, because we don't want to predetermine what kind of project they do, but if we get a diversity of postings, I'd like to actually include some of them in my lectures next year. You know, here's a video on this topic. I'm about to lecture on it. So I think teaching students is an important process, and hopefully these videos can be used, you know, in all sorts of number of different ways.
The timeline for this project was spread out over the entire semester, so asking them to complete various sort of time point assignments along the way to keep them on track. But I do think it was very backloaded in terms of the work required. The beginning, they were required to make a bibliography and then write a storyboard and find their images all together. And the storyboard was really the first major piece of work on my part, because it was the opportunity I had before they made their final project to really provide a lot of constructive feedback on their script and on their images. And then following that, making the video itself, I think was a lot of time for the students, especially the technical manager. I think something for us to think about next year is that maybe some of the videos lacked a very substantial topic from the beginning that made it hard to make a very nuanced, sophisticated video. So I think we need to establish whether the topics we give them are about them evaluating a claim scientifically, sort of what is clean coal and how is it clean, and is it really standing up to the claims that the coal industry gives it, or should we be asking them to sort of provide natural history of a specific type, sort of like the cassava virus and what's going on with cassava virus.
This project was a lot different because we really got to do our research, but instead of writing this elegantly written, complex essay, we had to do one that could be understood by the general public, and therefore it seemed a lot more simple, but it also produced a lot of challenges because we wanted to make it complex. We were trying to, find all this like really in detailed research about the problem and, why it's happening. But really in our video, we really tried to stick to the basics so that when we had to make our recommendations, they could be, very straightforward. This is what you can do in your everyday life to fix the problem of water scarcity. But I think, at times it was frustrating while we were making the video because we wanted to go into those complexities and we were saying to ourselves, I could just write an essay and this would be done. But having this process go throughout the year, throughout the semester made it, something that we were constantly thinking about, like how could we make this, big problem in simple terms for the public. So it was a very open project in that, even if someone's video they didn't like, they had to put it up on the website. So the peer review, you had to comment on, what exactly they were saying in the video, so the text itself, if the quality of images, which actually proved to be really important because if you didn't have clear images, then the entire video just didn't look nice. And that was something that at first in our rough draft we were saying, oh, it's fine if we have an image that's a little bit blurry, but it ended up being really important to have like really nice photos, sharp photos. So that was something that we had to address in our final draft. And also like the quality of music that you're putting in, we thought we had like a great song for one of the parts of the text, and one of the groups said it sounded like Pop Goes the Weasel, so we changed it. So in the end, we got good reactions from the professors, from my peers that I showed, from our family that once it was up, they were very proud of this project because it's not something that you see usually from a university class. Like you don't usually have a physical product that you can share like on the internet. Most of my projects are all essays or tests, which we had like 3 tests in this class. So we were tested on the information, but we also had this opportunity to do a creative assignment. And so for people like me that aren't majors in the subject, it was great because I could use my other strengths to succeed in